And welcome to Rewind Reviews, a podcast where we watch old movies from our past and discover if they're any good or if they're real shit. And sometimes, Chris, we knock it out the park in terms of like remembering, like we know the movie is exactly what we remember, and then sometimes it turns out we've forgotten so much of the movie it's basically like watching it for the first time.
Was that your experience watching this?
Yes, Chris, it really was. My memory of this film and the reality of this film are so different. I think I made a movie up in my head.
Well, what was the movie? Well, first of all, you're not doing
Yeah, we should do this. So, yeah, we should start with this. I'm really ill at the moment. I woke up like multiple times throughout the night, got very little sleep, shivers, then hot and cold, multiple trips to the toilet. I'll spare you guys the gory details, coughing and all the like. It's not well. Is I? So I have done the first portion of a COVID test. I have the dropper, and I'm about to drop it on the lateral flow. And to add some tension to the podcast, Chris, over the next sort of 5-10 minutes. I mean, it says 30, but in my experience, it's usually pretty clear after 5.
Oh, right away. Like, yeah, it's basically instant. Like, you know, you've got to give it the 30 and double check, but yeah.
So I'm going to drop the dropper in now, and then we'll carry on talking about Parole Officer, and I will give you updates as we go. 1 second, sorry, let me move this.
Well, let me give you a quick update on my sitch, Dan, because two things, mate. I may have to step away for two reasons during this. One, the glasses just happened to... All our glasses just weren't clean before. They were just on the side, or some were like by the bed. So I put my water in 2 novelty wine glasses that fill a whole bottle of wine. So the first thing that's going to happen is I'm probably going to need to pee at some point.
Sure.
The second thing...
You don't have to drink all of the liquid in there, but, you know...
But I will, and you know what, Dan? I'll drink it quickly. I'm basically halfway through 1 glass already. And the other thing is the other weekend, in fact, last weekend, we had a little thing for Jess's birthday. We had a little pizza party in the garden, and the family were round. And then the other day, the doorbell goes, and I answer it, and my nan stood there. And my nan goes, "The other day in your garden, I felt really sad." And I said, "Hi, Nan, how are you?" And she said, "I felt sad because you didn't have any flowers." And then she proceeded to hand me like 3 trays of flowers that she'd brought. And then she said, "I've organised a gardener." And I went, "What?" And she went, "Well, I can buy the flowers, but I can't plant them." And I said, "Well, thank you very much for buying them. You didn't need to do that." "What do you mean you've organised a gardener?" Like, I'm looking at these things thinking, you know, look, Dan, I haven't got green fingers or whatever they say, but, you know, put a load of soil in a pot, put the plants from their little plant pots into that pot of soil. I think I could work it out, you know, I could make do. And then I was like, what gardener? And she went, "Your mother." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, I don't know when that's happening. At some point, my mum's going to turn up and go, "You got some plants to pot?" I assume it won't be a Saturday morning. They tend to know that we're doing the podcast then. But that may happen as well, Dan. So, you know, last time, the last few times they've come in on a Saturday morning, they've snuck in, listened out for me doing the podcast, done whatever they came in to do, and then fucked off again without ever acknowledging it. Like, I came downstairs once, like a fucking shelf was just up that wasn't up when I went up to do the podcast. I was like, like, how did you even do this silent?
Why you're incapable of putting up a shelf yourself is...
Yeah, well, mate, now apparently I'm incapable of moving dirt from one pot to another. But there we go.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
I'm
Dan,
also not particularly green-fingered. You know, many a plant have died in my care over the years. I've tried a couple times to figure out an orchid, and orchids are notoriously difficult to keep alive. But I fucking have failed many a time. But even I reckon I could probably, take it out of a pot, get it in the dirt.
Although I say that in my younger years, I was living with a former girlfriend, and she was away for the week, and she came home, and when one of the first things she said to me was, "Oh, you've killed the plants," and my genuine reaction was, "I didn't know we had any plants." Like, I just had failed to notice that we had a load of plants. So anyway, Dan, the COVID test.
Yeah,
it's
done that thing where it's gone all pink, like from the sea down, and the sea line has become sort of is becoming clearer. So I'm just waiting to see if the T line arises. So for those who don't know,
the T
then I'm
line
sure
is pretty
What's that, sorry?
pretty quick. In my experience, the T line is pretty like boom, COVID. So I think you're all right, COVID wise.
Yeah, it's looking that way. I'll keep you updated. I've got a faint C line, which means the test is a functional test. It's not failed in some way. I'm just waiting for the T. How exciting! How exciting! I say waiting for the T. Obviously, I'm not expecting there to be a T. I'm not coughing anywhere near as much as I did the first time I had COVID. I do have a cough, but it's not the same. Like the first time I had COVID, it was like every sentence I was coughing. It was a horror. It was a nightmare to edit the podcast.
We did bad. We did multiple podcasts during. By the way, worth saying, as I did then, I insisted we didn't. Dan insisted we did. But Dan, while you wait, tell me about your memories watching The Parole Officer.
Yeah, so I remember the key element of this movie, which is that there is a tape that has evidence that there's a police officer that's done a murder, which is the premise of the movie, right? I remember this. But I remember it being he goes and gets the tape, and then he has a jaunt across as the police officer chases him down, and he gets his friends involved, and they're all running about in Manchester. They're all running around Manchester trying to get the tape to the relevant authorities, and hijinks ensue. I didn't remember, Chris.
Yeah, that's like the last 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I didn't remember, Chris, that it's basically a heist movie where the villain inexplicably puts the tape in a bank vault and he has to get it out. Which is...
Yes.
So it's about him gathering his... Which is, by the way, a cleverer premise. So for those who don't know, very quickly, the premise of the movie is, because he's a parole officer, but, actually he's a probation worker, but... That's
Steve Coogan plays him of Alan Partridge. I'm trying to think, because I'm willing to bet... I'm comment below if you're listening to this and you've watched this movie without watching it for this, because I would be amazed. So to kind of context, Steve Coogan, Alan Partridge, Greed fame is playing the parole officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he basically witnesses a murder, knows there's a tape of it. He's the police officer in question, again, inexplicably decides not to just kill him to get him out of the way, but instead decides the answer is to... Sorry, I'm going to quickly move my mouse because I'm being really easily distracted. The IMDb, which I've got open for names of actors, is showing me an advert for Fighting With My Family, just on loop, and I'm just sick of seeing Nick Frost, Lena Headey, The Rock flashing back. Oh, it's changed. It's changed to the new Minions movie. Cool, good. Anyway, scrolling down so it doesn't. I don't have to see that. So basically, the premise of the movie is that he needs to get the tape, so he needs to rob a bank, basically, and he's only successfully rehabilitated a couple of people in his time as a probation worker. So he has to go to these people he's convinced never to commit crimes again and say, "You need to help me rob a bank," which is just at its core a very funny premise. It just is. It's a great idea for a movie, even if it did not sink in that was the premise of the movie for me for some reason. Because I remember watching the movie when I was younger. I enjoyed it well enough. I remember, I remember much of the hijinks, but my memory was that it was all over the tape. Like the tape was with someone, and then there'd be a bit of hijinks, and then it'd get grabbed off him, and then it'd get grabbed off that guy. Like, I just remember there being a lot of kerfuffle over the tape. I didn't realise the tape pretty much spends most of the movie in a bank vault at all. Like, that was not in my memory bank at all. So yeah, I don't have much history with it. It's just that I saw it when I was younger. It was filmed in and around Manchester and Stockport, where I grew up. Closest thing I've got to a hometown is Stockport, so I recognised a lot of the places. I remember it was kind of like... You watched it at the cinema in the centre of Stockport, and like some of the streets they filmed it on were like 30 seconds walk. So it was a fun time was had by all. So yeah, if a few of us went and saw it, we were aware of it mostly through that, because it was a big deal that a film filmed in Stockport. And it didn't even film most of it in Stockport. There's a lot of stuff in central Manchester, but for some reason, one sort of mid-tier British sort of comedy gets filmed anywhere near your hometown, and suddenly it's like a big deal.
Yeah. Well, especially because like 2001, like amongst peak Coogan, like, and he's like a Manchester hero.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Saw it at the time, really enjoyed it. I haven't thought about it a huge amount since, other than that whenever it's come up, I've been like, "Hey, that's a great movie. That's a fun movie." I'll reserve my current thoughts for later. But I'm very curious because obviously this was your selection.
Yeah.
What's your history with the film? Is it stronger than that? Have you got a worn out VHS somewhere or?
I think it is a little bit stronger. I think I do have a copy of it on video or DVD at Mum and Dad's. I think because I got this. I'm pretty sure there used to be these things, Dan, called libraries. And as a kid, you used to go to the library, and you were there to pick up some books, but part of you was hoping to be able to, rent a DVD or rent a video. That was one of the goals, That was one of the dreams of the library visit, was to convince your parents to let you rent a film. And I convinced them to let me rent The Parole Officer, and it just literally kind of the cover caught me, and it was like, right, comedy, okay, cool, let's give this a whirl. That maybe I'd seen all the other selections. It was slim pickings. I don't know, but I picked up The Parole Officer. I think on video, borrowed it from the library, and then I'm pretty sure borrowed it again at a later date to show. Or that weekend, I maybe watched it twice, once on my own, and then once again with Mum and Dad, or watched it with them. I can't remember, but I remember particularly enjoying it. And I'm pretty sure I definitely had a stronger memory of it than you. I think I've watched it a couple of times since then. Not in a particularly, it's not Back to the Future, not in a particularly emotionally connected to the film way. But there are some films that you want something to watch, and the film pops into your head, and you go, I'll give that a watch. And I've not seen it for a few years, but I think even like sort of around uni age, maybe I watched it again, and have seen it a couple of times. Kind of like another one for me for that, which was my other choice potentially for this, was frequently asked questions about time travel. Sometimes I'll just go, I fancy watching that movie, and I'll watch it. And I chose it because it is a film from my childhood. It is a film I remember enjoying. I am intrigued as to whether it's good or not, but I really felt I liked the idea of picking something that wouldn't have much trivia, that was only 94 minutes. Like the antithesis of Lord of the Rings was basically what I was going for. You know what I mean? I wanted to pick something breezy, something that, everyone's got an opinion on Lord of the Rings. No one's got an opinion on The Parole Officer. It's short. The trivia is short. That was my logic for the choice. I'm intrigued as to what you thought of it, especially as I imagine part of you was, that your viewing would have been slightly influenced by a sensation of, oh, this isn't the film I remembered.
Yeah, but also I think because the premise is, in my opinion, pretty clever. The idea of putting a probation worker into a situation where he's forced to, do a crime. It's just quite fun. It's just like a funny premise. Like, it's just one of those premises that's automatically amusing before you even get to the execution. You know what I mean? You're starting in a good place. There's plenty of comedy movies where, there's a premise where you go, well, that could be a comedy, or it could be a drama, or it could be you just have to approach it differently, in terms of just the pure plot, the actual events of the movie. But this is an inherently funny situation, so that's just a very strong place to be starting from. And I was torn between like surprise, but also like being mildly impressed. Like, oh, okay, that's fun. Like I wasn't expecting it to quite go that way. The sort of sequence that happens. Sort of as the movie moves into its second act, where he has to sort of recruit his team to do the heist, because it's essentially a heist movie, was a really fun thing for me, because that's when I started to go, oh, this is not the movie I thought it was, because it was, to be fair, the first act is pretty much as I remember, how he gets himself into the situation and how the tape exists and what it's all over. So yeah, apologies if I end up rambling today, by the way. I'm definitely not as coherent as I usually am, so I'm gonna head it off at the pass now and apologise to the listeners if I start a thought and either don't finish it or ramble into nothingness. I think there's a real chance of that. Update on the test, it's now completely clear. So I've got the line on C, meaning the test didn't fail, and I've got nothing on T, which means I am, of course, COVID-free at present.
Which means you've got, all the fun of being ill without the immediate not needing to be at work.
Yeah, I've got to go to work this afternoon, and I feel like absolute shit. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be real fun.
Thanks to the crazy attitude these days, you technically could have gone in anyway, even if you'd have tested positive. You could just go in and infect everyone.
Yep.
but there we go.
In the UK, you can indeed do that. You can indeed, and people have.
Madness.
Disappointingly.
Anyway, carry on.
It's a sad world.
Let's not. Yeah, let's not. Jesus, let's not get into politics today, eh? Right, carry on.
I'll give that some context for listeners in the future. The date is the 25th of June, the day after a rather important and very sad political thing. So I just want to.
Horrific.
You can Google it yourself if you want to figure out what we're referring to, but just to make it possible for people to work it out, if that makes sense. Cool. Right. So it was pleasant to discover the movie, and it was a sense of discovery. It doesn't really feel like a traditional rewind review for me because I don't feel like I'm comparing this to a memory of the film because my memory of the film was so wrong. There's no way to compare. So I can only really take it as it was and as it came to me, if that makes sense.
But this isn't the first time we've reviewed a film you've not seen, is it?
No, not at all. But like it's more often than not, it's a film I've seen. So this is slightly unusual, not completely unusual, but certainly slightly unusual compared to how we normally do it. So for me, it was a sense of discovery, which is again not something we do very often on here. There have been films that I've had in the past where I've like not remembered much of it, or like I remember we talked about this with what was it? It was the Michael Caine one. Oh God,
The Italian Job.
Yeah, Italian Job. I think I remember saying on that one something like, I remember so little of this movie I started to question whether I'd actually seen it or if I'd just seen all the important bits. It's something similar to that, I guess, for this. So do you want to get into like just opinions, like just overall thoughts, spoiler-free ones before we get into?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, give me your views.
So I actually, on the whole, I think I really like this film. I think it's lots of fun. It's a great premise. It's like funny in parts, but it does sometimes struggle tonally. As when like the plot stops, like the plot will sometimes stop moving to put in a Steve Coogan sketch, and that only serves to slow down the plot and take away from things that needed to be addressed in the script, some character stuff. So this is one of those things where it's like I think this is a really fun film, definitely a recommend. I think it holds up surprisingly well for a comedy of this era, but I will say that from a script perspective, my overarching thought was that it felt like this is the second to last draft of a script. Like it just needed one more rewrite before it was ready to go to clean up some of just a couple of weird character bits that need where like for the best example is Lena Headey's character, who her motivations just it's whatever the scene needs them to be, with no real thrust or explanation of why her opinion on a situation is changing and shifting. Something to smooth that out would be nice, or even some small practical things of why doesn't the guy, like they don't do a very good job making you understand why he doesn't just murder Steve Coogan in the first place, or why the tape doesn't just get destroyed in the first place. Like I know the idea is that it's probably being kept as leverage by the guy that has it, because it's not in the guy that did the murder's hands, is it? It's in he's probably keeping it as leverage over the police officer, but that's not explained properly in the movie, to my knowledge. So there's just weird bumps that you could easily smooth over. But for me, I think on the whole, it's a recommend. I think it's a really fun film. Because it's only 90 minutes or whatever, it's like, how could you not recommend that to someone?
Yeah, I think it's a good time watching it. It's one of those, because like you say, there are definitely logic flaws and Chekhov's Victor. it's
I was saving that for later on, but yeah, 100%. the once we get into the sort of full blown spoilers, the solution to many of the problems is the movie hands it to them. Deus Ex Victor in this case, but yeah, we'll come back to that.
They do definitely set him up. So there's that age old. Is it Chekhov's gun or is it Deus Ex Machina? But yeah, anyway, it's probably both. In this case, because it's quite haphazardly done, and I think especially the beginning, he's just going from situation to situation, and there's even a scene where they're like, "Why are you here?" And he's like, I really can't tell you. And it's like, yeah, you've not done a great job. Motivation is not something they delve. You could easily add 20 minutes to this film and just give every single character more motivation.
I honestly don't think you need to add 20 minutes. I think you just take out maybe one or two of the sort of Steve Coogan sketches. Take out the bloody fertility statue scene. That doesn't. Yeah, because
that museum scene is the script reason for that scene to be there is to show Coogan and Lena Headey's character bonding, but they don't because they're barely in that scene together. So that scene immediately can go. It's got a weird. You're so distracted watching it now by going, "Is that Simon Pegg?" But he'd only done. This was his third movie. I looked that up, so it's that's why it's so weird, and he's got such a small part. But
yeah, and also I think the same can probably be said for the roller coaster scene.
Yeah, that's trying to and because that just becomes a vomit gag, stretched out over 4 minutes. So yeah, there's definitely scenes to remove and work to be done. But it is, it's Stephen Coogan himself, apparently, according to Wikipedia, is he squirms and thinks of it as a children's film, but he's glad if people like it. And it kind of is. It's kind of a children's film. It's kind of a cartoon film. But it's, it's 94 minutes of fun. It is entertaining. There are bits that are very funny. And it's just, it's not... I don't think it's particularly... Even its flaws... are not overly offensive to the point of, Lena Headey's character's treatment isn't great. But in general, it's quite amusing. Oh, another weird thing which we have to put in there, we need to get to it, is the fucking credit sequence. It's one of the weirdest credit sequences I've ever seen in my life. But we'll talk about that later. Yeah, I had a good time watching it. I sat down, I made myself an obscene breakfast wrap. And I watched this movie, and I had a good time doing that. It's that kind of. I wouldn't recommend trying to impress someone with it. I wouldn't recommend it being a date night movie. But if you want something to chuck on and you're a fan of Steve Coogan and British comedy, I think there's things to enjoy here. I don't think, and you know what? Whilst the character stuff isn't there, the plot stuff ticks along very nicely, and it's a really, like you say, it's a really fun premise. And actually, in that regards, it's stronger than some other comedies we've reviewed on here, like Liar Liar and Dumb and Dumber. And when the jokes land, there's some really funny jokes in here as well.
Yeah, and I also think to sort of pick on to move off picking on the sort of weaknesses, I'd say the strengths are. The actual characters, their interactions with each other are always really fun and energetic. Him and his gang of friends, just watching them, sit around and eat a pizza while they discuss methodology for robbing this bank, and seeing them all their different takes. That's all really fun. There's a lot of really good character individual. So across a movie, none of these characters' motivations track very well. But in terms of scene to scene, they've always got a fun perspective that adds something to it as well. I'd say, go on.
The movie's at its best when it's an ensemble movie. It's almost like they couldn't quite decide whether to make it a Steve Coogan vehicle or an ensemble movie. And I think it would have been an even stronger film if they'd lent into the ensemble. Because an ensemble movie of these sort of idiots trying to rob a bank, but not rob a bank to rob it, rob a bank to get this tape, is a really fun premise. And I think that the movie's definitely strongest when it's ensemble.
Yeah, and I think as well, just to say on my last sort of overall thing before we get into full on sort of spoilery stuff, genuine tension to some of these scenes, surprisingly. Like the scene with the head.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for listeners who haven't seen it yet. It was I would like it's as ridiculous as that scene is. Genuine tension, and I was really surprised with how what the outcome of that scene was as well, because the movie then creates a problem that it forces itself to solve, but that's a different issue.
Same with the actual heist portion of the film. There's some genuine moments of tension in that heist portion, and there's some genuine everything you want from a heist movie. Some twists, some turns, some. Oh, you think this is how they're going to do it, but they do it this way. Oh, they put this piece together, and you didn't know as an audience member what it meant, but here's what it means. All of those things it does really well. It's a really good heist movie, and I have a real soft spot for heist movies. Like I've watched Tower Heist, that Eddie Murphy movie. Like,
you know what? I saw that in the cinemas. Ouch! I regretted that choice.
Maybe we'll get to it one day. But so
I recall not enjoying it, Chris. Is what I recall.
So I might watch that this weekend, Dan. I think we're both recommending. We'll delve into spoilers and kind of deeper thoughts now. But you know what? It's a fun British comedy from the early 2000s. Give it a watch.
It's a shame that we've adopted a sort of like very true to the internet. Recommend, do not recommend, because everything is binary on the internet. It's either good or it's bad system, because it's very true of like what we should be doing on a podcast. But also there's times when I go, man, we've recommended this, like we've recommended like the Truman Show and like Back to the Future and all these like truly great movies.
But we're often giving caveats, and earlier on I gave the specific. If you're into British comedy, if you like Steve Coogan, like this isn't neither of us are saying if you want to watch a brilliant movie this weekend, watch The Parole Officer. We're saying if you like these things, we had a good time with that movie. That's the caveat. I don't think to anyone. I'm not. I'm doing a thing at my local theatre at the moment. I'm not going to turn up tonight going, guys, Have you checked out The Parole Officer? worth $4.99 and buying the DVD? Like, check it out, my friends.
It's just weird, isn't it, when sometimes you do this and you've got this binary recommend not recommend system. You just think like, is this on the same level as another movie we've recommended, like The Truman Show? No,
of course not.
No.
But I think that's clear in what we're saying.
Yeah, 100%. So it's flawed, but still a lot of fun, and I would say on the whole quite enjoyable.
And you know what? I'd rather it's a more. I think the other reason like we're so positive on it is it's a way more pleasurable experience going into a film that you remember being good, but knowing that it might actually fall apart, and it not be perfect, but overall be enjoyable to watch. That's such a nicer experience than Good Will Hunting, where Good Will Hunting we were largely positive about, but discovering some almighty flaws in Good Will Hunting was depressing. It's so much more fun when it's like, I expected to go, oh yeah, I enjoyed that, and I went, oh yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Or like, like Joe's Apartment, the opposite. I expected it to be a shit show, and it was. Or even like The Truman Show, where it's like, expected it to be a masterpiece, and hey, guess what? It is. Anyway, so plot stuff. Lots of contrivances in this script, Chris. A lot of things just sort of very conveniently play out in very specific ways. Characters make choices. There's a lot of what we call the hand of the writer in this movie. I would argue it's probably one of its biggest flaws, is that so often the movie is coaxing people into certain situations so it can have certain scenes rather than like having a natural flow. I think it is probably the movie's biggest weakness. It's a mixture of like character motivation, because basically they've decided they want the scene that follows, so you've got to get the characters into that situation in whatever way you want. They wanted the scene, for example, towards the end of the film where they get burst out of prison by the truck backing up through it. But the reality is, getting them caught to break them out 3 minutes of screen time later doesn't help the movie.
Let alone that classic breakout. And it is, again, classic of the genre this film is trying to be. But, like, let alone the logic flaws of how do you know they're going to be in that cell? How do you get how do you get
prisons and jails are generally speaking not, like, publicly accessible. Like, how did she get the truck into the complex in question to then drive it through a wall? Who cares? Like, it's, yeah. But this is the problem.
But you know what?
Go on, sorry.
It's like, so, for people listening to this without seeing the movie, there's basically the van has, it's Kirsty get in on it, but the guy reads it as, it's get Kirsty in, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like the writers went, well, let's engineer the circumstance for that gag. And you know what? I'm fine with that. The gag did make me smile. Like, all right.
But that's the biggest. I think, yeah, that's the problem with the whole film, isn't it? It's just so often like the closest thing to a problem the film has, which is just like it's every few minutes you're sensing the writers forcing the situation like to be a certain way. But also like it creates all these weird inconsistencies. So at the beginning of the movie, he's being like essentially fired from his old job in London, I guess. And they're like, your colleagues have all described you as incompetent, useless, an arsehole, whatever. You don't get on with your team, whatever. We're basically going to move you. Excuse me. We're basically going to move you to Manchester. And he's like, yeah, I'll take that, please. At least I have a job. Then he gets to Manchester. And then, like, after the first day, when he gets into all this weirdness with, and we'll get into it in a minute because the logic of the sequence of events that lead him to witnessing a murder and then being framed for it, but not, are also kind of weird and questionable. But then he gets out of the guy threatens him and is like, I'll frame you for the murder. You've no proof I did it. Blah blah blah. I'm a police officer. You're, who are you? Like, I'll keep your mouth shut or else, basically. And then he's like, oh, I'm going home. She's like, oh, where are you going to? Oh, I'm going back to London. I can't hack it here. He literally says he's going back to his old job. Weren't you just fired from that job? Like, they moved you here on purpose. Like, I don't think you could just go back. Like, I don't think that's how that works. But also, what the movie makes it, like, the opening scene of the movie goes to a lot of sort of work to basically tell us that he's bad at his job. It's like, oh, in 20 years in the job, he's only rehabilitated 4 people or something. Yeah. But then the rest of the movie doesn't really like deal with that. Like the rest of the movie, it's just he's doing the right thing and being a good guy. But like I don't know. It's like what's the point in setting him up as being bad at his job?
Yeah, because the movie multiple times shows how he could be quite good at his job. He's always encouraging them to do the right thing. He's very supportive. He's very trusting. He's got instincts about them. Like, his instinct is that Kirsty's telling the truth and she is. Like, if anything, they maybe should have... And you know what as well? He's not even that annoying. That's the other thing that first scene sets up. Like, this is an annoying guy who's not good at his job. And he's not really either of those things. Right. Throughout the movie. So, yeah, that is weird. Like, I don't think there's any reason he couldn't just simply be starting a new job in Manchester.
Yeah, right. Why? Yeah, exactly. But again, they had the scene in their head, and it is funny when it's like, how many, cases have you had over the years? How many have been successful? And then marching them all in and hearing them, like, describe him as annoying, but how he helped. Like, that introduces you to those characters. I understand what it's there for. It just, it does not function in the movie that it's finally in.
Yeah.
And then, again, the sequence of events. So, I'll try and recap this as best as I can to try and make sense of it. So, Kirsty steals a car. She's a joyrider. She does that. She steals cars and drives around. This copper, she has a koala bear full of drugs on her. This copper follows her. The car crashes. He plants the drugs on her person directly, or plants a portion of them on her person directly. Then takes the rest of them himself. Steve Coogan glances at the koala bear when they're back at the station and decides to follow him?
Well, Kirsty told, in a scene we don't see but hear in voiceover, Kirsty tells Steve Coogan. What is Steve Coogan's character's name? We're still going to refer to him as Steve Coogan, but just so I know.
Yeah,
Simon. Kirsty tells...
Simon Garden.
Simon says, she says the drugs were in, and then for some reason, the world's worst bent copper, which is just a phrase people use in Britain, if that sounds horrific. The line of duty made it famous. He glances at the bag, sees the koala bear, and we hear Kirsty's voice finish the sentence. So it goes, Kirsty said the drugs were in a koala bear. And so that he then puts two and two together and realise this copper might be a criminal, and he's got that said koala bear. The bit, it's not that where it falls apart for me. It's when he goes up to the desk, flirts with Emma, Lena Headey's character, says, "Oh, I forgot to ask him a question." She says, "You'll find him at this shady club. That's where he gets his information." And then he just goes to the club. Like, what's his plan? Is his plan to follow him and try and get evidence? Is his plan to genuinely talk to him? Is it like, what is his plan in going to the club?
Yeah, and doing that thing where you have the character acknowledge he doesn't really know what he's doing doesn't really paper over the crack of it.
No.
That's like the scriptwriter was aware that there was a problem there, but not knowing how to solve it. So instead, you get the line, "What are you doing here? I don't really know."
No, yeah, exactly. And it's and you know what? I really notice that in movies now because I've done it, like when writing stuff for uni, stuff afterwards, like plays. I've absolutely done this doesn't make sense. Well, let's acknowledge it, and it just I cringe when I see it. And like I said earlier, that's a really that moment stuck out for me as well. And then like he's there, and this murder happens, and it's just so quick. That's what blew my mind watching this back. I was like, I don't remember this just being so bam, 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 bam. And then suddenly we're into it. And, I guess the movie's 90 minutes long. I kind of respect that it's, that's one of the reasons we're recommending it is that, it's 90 minutes. You'll be entertained for 90 minutes.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, actually that's one of the parts of the movie where I think the pacing is fine. Like, I don't mind that it's like straight into the setup of he's witnessed a murder and there's this tape. You get to that as quick as you want. The proportions later, I think, that could probably use a bit more smoothing over are the character-y things that we talked about already, like particularly around Emma, Lena Headey's character. Lena Headey. I keep forgetting that it's not Headley.
Do you think part of the problem there is, well, they don't set up why these two characters, I suppose they do her and him, and unfortunately it's, him perving on her, which isn't the best motivation for why someone has feelings for another character. But the justification of why, and it's a shame because I think it is there. She's surrounded by knobhead policemen that think they know everything, and finally someone nice comes into her life. And she wants to be with someone that's not a knobhead. Like, you can fansplain that. We have a scene where she's getting hit on by a knobhead policeman, but it's just they're not tying up the bows in the script neat enough to make that overly clear in the text. I'm adding to that to get there.
Yeah. They do need to make it clearer for her because I think. It's like I said, it's the character stuff that it definitely gets the most wrong, I think, as well as those weird little consistency things, especially around her. Because I after we've done the opening scene, Simon, Steve Coogan's character, is reasonably consistent after that point. I can't think of another scene where I'm like completely baffled by what he's up to.
Yeah, that's fair.
In the first act, there is some stuff where it's like, I don't know why he initially went in, but even that you can sort of go, well, he's trying to do the right thing for his client. But even that flies in the face of what we just learned about him, which is that he's bad at his job. So it's definitely a bit all over the place. Like I said, it just feels like it's right there. The structure is good. The pacing is mostly there. You just needed one more draft. and maybe to kill a couple of your babies, as they say. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that phrase. I don't know. I'm not even sure how prominent that is, but it's basically when you need a screenwriting idea of kill your children. There's a chance there's a scene that you've left in the movie that doesn't need to be in the movie. That's no longer needed to the overall script, but you're so attached to the scene because the scene in itself is good that you keep it in, and it ends up harming the overall experience. Definitely feels like there's a couple of those in this movie. Scenes he just couldn't quite part with that you maybe needed to.
I think you were gonna get to then inconsistency in the Emma character.
Yes, sorry, this is what I mean. I'm sorry, guys. I am gonna.
That's fine. I'm here to steer, baby. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, steer the ship because I am absolutely a mess right now. The lack of sleep isn't helping either because I've been so ill. I haven't really slept. But I think her motivations, so particularly towards the end of the movie, it's a bit. The first two acts of the movie, I'm kind of okay with her because I think the idea is kind of like he doesn't really know what she's thinking, so we don't really know what she's thinking. I'm okay with her character's motivations being a little bit fuzzy in the first act and a half, maybe like first half of the movie, let's say. But once she starts making deliberate decisions towards the end of the movie, sort of giving it away what she actually thinks and feels, I cannot for the life of me keep track of this character. She shows up and she loves him, then she sees the stuff for the heist and she's less interested, which is fine, but she doesn't give him a chance to explain.
To the point where she gets the police round there.
Exactly, that's my next... Yeah, that's exactly. Then she throws him to the... She literally brings the police in to arrest him, essentially. And then the next time we see her, having not seen her since that moment, or having had any interaction between those two characters, she's just on his side now. And helps him out during the heist.
Well, I think that, and again, I'm slightly taking... It's like they've given us half a glass and I'm filling the other glass up myself. That, I think, is... She sees it. She begins to have her own suspicions about the copper. What's that character's name?
I can't see him either. Why isn't he at the top of the? He's like literally not on my cast list. Colin. Ben Miller's Colin. Yes, you're right. There he is.
So no, not Ben Miller's Colin. Ben Miller is one of the guys conducting the heist. I mean Burton, the villain, the Detective Inspector Burton. Inspector Burton. Stephen Dillon is the actor's name.
Oh, yes, you're right. Sorry.
So I think she begins to suspect him. She begins to pick up on things, which makes her suspicious of him, which makes her go, "Oh, he was telling the truth. My feelings for him are fine." Again, they're giving us half a glass and I'm topping it up with my own stuff there. But I think, the scene where he's like, find out what's going on and looks really shifty. The scene at his flat, which I think actually takes place technically before the raid. But it's kind of like she's got her suspicions. But I'll tell you now, Dan, this movie falls apart if Emma isn't played by as brilliant an actress as Lena Headey.
Yeah, right. She's so good in this.
She's doing so much work that the script is not giving her. She really helps you not necessarily believe the relationship, but the amount you do believe it and enjoy the film anyway and stuff is down to, I think, her brilliant performance. She is 99% of the chemistry between her and Steve Coogan is Lena Headey.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. She is very, very good in this film. Because she manages to give a character that on paper does not have much depth. You see in scenes like when she's interacting with the characters, like even when she's in for some reason, another really inexplicable scene, she's just round at Inspector Burton's flat having a glass of wine or whatever. There's a really weird scene.
Again, what's annoying is they've got she said yes to the nice guy, and he turned out to be a prick and let her down. So she goes, all right, fuck it. I'll say yes to the bad guy then. But again, that is the script only the movie only gives us half of that.
But it doesn't happen in that order, I suppose, does it? Oh, I suppose it technically does, because she says yes to the good guy, and then he decides he's leaving. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, although actually, I think he might already be back before she's then having, a drink round his. Yeah, you're right. So again, with that, you show us her raising suspicions, and she said yes to a drink because she's suspicious of him. Like, do that then, in that case. Yeah.
Also, Chris, why do you keep the head?
Yeah.
Because that's the scene where he goes to the fridge to get her out, a wine or something, or whatever, a glass, I don't know, a glass of milk, I don't know, I can't remember what he gets her, but he gets her something from the fridge, and when he opens the fridge to grab it, the head of the guy he murdered is in the fridge.
Yeah.
And I know we're establishing that he has it, so that later on we can do the scene where he plants it at Simon's house for the police to come and find.
That, and the news report says a headless body was found. So
they established it. But my question is, Chris, so he strangles the guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Why remove the head and keep it? I'm not, the movie makes it very clear what happened. I just don't understand why that's what happened.
No, I know. The only thing I can think is something to do with maybe, like, it means he can control because he's in charge of the investigation. So if they haven't got the head, or maybe it's even something to do with, like, no, it can't be to do with fingerprints, because he then uses the head to frame Simon.
That was my thinking.
No
was
idea.
the head, keeping the head an insurance policy against Simon? Was my thought.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
But at what point does he know Simon saw everything? Oh, again, he knows that pretty much instantly, doesn't he? Because they find him. Man,
and they find his wallet, and the news report also says, and a wallet was found near the scene. So maybe the head is right. We've got his wallet. We can place him at the scene. If this goes tits up, we'll plant the head as evidence.
Another thing, Chris. How does he get the head in the fridge? The police knock on the door. Yeah. They all come in, and then there's this weird thing where they're searching the house, and it just cuts to Steve Coogan's character Simon and him in the kitchen, and he's like, sprinkling some fucking oregano into a broth of some sort or something.
Well, yeah, it especially as presumably what we're meant to believe, and this is something else that the movie doesn't do anything to tell us, but logically, they figured Emma would do the right thing and tell the police her suspicions and got rid of all the shit, because all their bank robbing gear, apart from the laptop, is gone. That's not found. The rope and all of that shit has been cleared out. So, and the way Simon's cockily cooking the chicken is a man going, we've cleared everything out. You're not going to catch us. So fucking weird. So not only is there like that to contend with, when did they get rid of the evidence? And is my theory that they thought she was going to do that, so did it safe? And when does the head end up in the fridge? And what's so annoying about that is Emma storms off. We might be in trouble here. We better take precautions. 10 seconds. Someone saying that covers it. 5-second shot of the shoddy kind of police, the guy who's always with Inspector Burton, popping the head in the fridge, because that's clearly what's happened, because they share a look later.
Or even, just show us a shot of him opening the fridge. You don't physically see the head, but he's gone in the fridge, because you can then preserve the surprise later. Because it is the way they've shot. Look, I know exactly what's happened. They've gone, well, won't it be a funny sort of shock for the audience if the fridge is opened and there's just a head in the fridge? And
that does work. It is.
And it does work, because you're not expecting it.
It's effective.
But what they've done is, by not giving us any moment in which it would make sense for the head to have been put in there, it doesn't track when you think backwards. So what you need to do is create a situation where there's a moment where when you look back, you go, that was probably the moment the head was put in. Yeah. Even if I didn't directly see it, if I go back, it makes sense. So you just have to have a shot of that other shifty cop, sort of looking around, opening the fridge in the background of another shot maybe, or even just show him opening the fridge like he's searching it, but then he leans in maybe a little too much. Like, I don't know. You got to be careful because you don't want to give it away. But also, like, I think I think an audience would just take that as a shot of the search continuing. Right?
Yeah, completely. And so what we've done there, you add that with the "we need to take precautions," line. in 10 seconds, or in your example, you could even do that in the background of something else happening.
Right.
10 seconds, we've solved that problem. We've solved that logic flaw. And that is so often the thing with this movie. They don't even need to, like you said earlier, they don't need to add 20 minutes. There's just another draft of the script that would align some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Although, Dan,
Go on.
would another draft solve Chekhov's Victor's Deus Ex Victor?
Right, yeah, so let's explain Victor. So there's a point earlier in the movie when they're doing the old get the band together trope. Steve Coogan's the character, and he's going around to his old probation. Which, by the way, do they all just live in Manchester now? What aren't these all people he helped at his previous job in London?
Yeah, I know, and we have a montage of them in London. The more I think about it, just get rid of that fucking first bit.
Yeah, weird. Anyway, so just assuming we're not worrying about that. He goes around and gets his mates, and they're all reluctant. They do a reasonably good job of making them reluctant. They mostly put that on the George character. The other characters are a slightly easier one round, but there's enough. I think there's enough cajoling that happens there for it to work.
Yeah,
they're resistant enough.
There's a great gag, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if you're going to get to it. There's a great gag with Ben Miller's character where basically there's loads of cajoling with the first two. And Ben Miller's character essentially is just gives a 20-second pitch of what he's doing now. And then it just cuts to him in the car going, "That was a shit job."
Yeah, it's great.
So that's very funny.
So they gather them all together, and these are all guys we're introduced to into that opening scene. But then he mentions that they're going for one more, Victor. Now, Victor has not yet been established at this stage. He was not one of the handful of people in the first scene of the movie that Steve Coogan had actually successfully helped. Now, that kind of makes sense, because obviously we know Victor is very much still in a life of crime. And they set him up quite funnily as this master thief, this legendary thief that he'd stolen the crown jewels just to prove he could, and then put them back like the next day, all that sort of stuff. Very fun idea. They get there and he's dead. They're told he's dead. They go to his grave, and he died in the most ridiculous way you could possibly imagine. I won't spoil it, but it's a funny gag. And it leads to a particularly great moment about such a waistline, which is a very funny moment in this film. It's one of my favourite gags from the whole movie, actually, to be honest with you. Such a waste, pause, of human life, obviously. It's great. It's very well done. But then the Victor just doesn't obviously get referenced again, and you just know, this part of it is Chekhov's gun, that Victor will return at some point. Now, I'm okay with Victor coming back to help them get into the safe at the end. Because it's not...
Yeah.
That's not the end goal. The end goal is proving... Is Simon's character proving that Inspector Burton murdered someone, right? So I don't mind... on the heist portion, him getting help from anywhere for funsies, right? So having this Victor character show up to solve the problem of the safe, allowing Simon's character to acquire the tape, thumbs up, fine. But I really needed Simon to solve his own problem in terms of getting the tape into the right hands.
Yeah, which
because that's the premise of the movie. Victor solving that problem is such... you do it once, fair enough. Once you do it twice, the same exact gag, and then you do it a third time, because there are 3 different points in which Victor shows up and helps. And then the gag at the end is that actually he was doing it, to steal money himself, which is quite funny. But you could have done that without having him sort of spoil it 3 separate occasions. He should not be the solution to all the problems.
I don't even know if at the end... Simon knows what Victor's done, or if he's blagging it when he talks about having a plan and all of that sort of stuff. I think there's a world where he didn't even know he was going to be... He didn't know what Victor had done until he sees Victor on the stage. Which means he literally, gets caught 3 times in a row.
It's so funny how much this movie also like leans into contrivances to the point where when they were doing this police officer, Inspector Burton, that's the one that's done the murder. He's like the minute they announced earlier in the movie that he's getting some sort of medal honouring him for being a hero. It's some sort of hero medal they've made up for the purposes of the movie. I went, well, I hope that event has a big old TV. Because I think that's probably where they'll show the tape, right? They get there at the last minute, get the tape on a big screen of some sort, and then when you see the set and there's a big screen, I'm like, cool, problem solved, tick.
Mate, that's not even my issue with that sequence. Right, the end of the movie. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan.
Well, do we settle on Victor? Like, that's a bad thing, right?
No,
that's all handled hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. And they don't even do. I couldn't quite remember, and I was hoping that the gag would be that the wife they met earlier, who is just clearly a woman, that would have been Victor.
Yes, I wanted that too, because they talked about how he was a master of disguise, and I was absolutely convinced the reveal was going to be that she'd show up later, and then like you know, like pull a rubber mask off and just be Victor, and like.
Yeah, or even my hope was that when Victor repeated about he repeated something the wife said in her exact voice, and they would just stare at him and be like, yeah, no, the Victor stuff is. I think you're right. If they use it once, you know, they've set it up, they're using it fine. But they just keep going back to Victor.
And I just think that you can't use it to solve the ultimate issue. I think the hero needs to resolve the plot. I think the protagonist needs to be the one to climb the mountain in the end. I don't think it's right. I'm happy for the protagonist to get assistance for some of the various hurdles, but actually reaching the summit, that has to be the hero, right? That has to be the protagonist. And Victor being the ultimate solution to the problem of he's the one who gets the tape in front of everyone is no, thank you. That's very unsatisfying from a narrative perspective.
I think they almost got carried away with the heist notion of like heist films can just be heist films, and I think nowadays heist films need to have a million twists, and they wanted the twist of you think they've got away, the villains have got away with it again, and that they've got the tape again, and actually that's not the right tape, but you don't need a twist at that point. We've had enough twists, we've had our fun. Even, you know, I don't know, him going in with the gun or making an emotive ploy to the head of police to play the tape, or all right, I've got a gun to this woman's head and I'm going to put the tape in, or maybe that's when the gang turn up. You know, they're like, oh, what are you going to do? And he throws the tape between each member of the gang, and then the one on the stage puts it in and plays it on a world's giant TV that's hooked up to a VCR. Like, do you know what I mean? Something like that. It feels like, again...
Chris, I'm not having none of this. Have you ever organised a hero event where you give out a medal to a hero? Serious question, Chris. Have you ever organised one of those events? I'm not having you poking holes in this bit. I'm absolutely fine with this. You haven't, have you?
No, I haven't done.
No, I bet you need a screen. Bet you need a big giant screen hooked up to a VCR. You don't know. Maybe they're playing a clip of him being a hero. Maybe they've got footage of him over the years they're going to play to like a really nice soundtrack. You know, I've had the time of my life, and just fading between different pictures of that guy. Him in police school. You know, first day on the job. You know, first arrest. You know, as a constable.
Dan.
His day that he got his badge to be an inspector. Just, you know, it's set to I've had the time of my life. Why not?
All right, Dan. I'm not allowed to pick holes in this sequence. Fine. Answer me this. I've got a question for you, Dan. Is it me, or is he actually not even that visible in the tape?
No, he's not. No, he's not. The tape that's supposed to prove he done a murder, when you finally see it, the angle, you can't even see his face.
It's so funny to me. This film, like, this film was made at exactly the right time for people not to be poking too much holes into the forensic and, like, legal side of the evidence. Like... Oh man, amazing! Victor definitely is just and I really like that idea of that's when the gang come in and they all help out. There's definitely they wanted the twist scene, another twist scene, and the script needs one more draft.
Yes, agreed. So what did you think about? What do you think? Let's talk about this ending because you've been dying to get to this, the credit scene.
No, well, I was going to say something else, and you said, no, let's finish with Victor first, but I can't remember. Oh, yeah, mate, come on. Have you ever knocked someone out with a fucking stamp? Have you ever come across a stapler strong enough to staple a tie to a wooden desk? I mean, it was fun, and I don't think... That sounds like a criticism. I don't think the movie, everyone involved in this, the movie itself knows that scene is ridiculous, and that's the point of the scene.
Yeah, I would agree so.
But it did make me laugh. I was like, fucking hell, I need to get hold of that stapler. That's some powerful shit.
It's a powerful stapler.
And again, you kind of feel like with a draft, can you imagine if... one of the criminals is, during the bonding montage, one of the criminals is teaching him how to fight, and he knocks one of the guys out with a punch that he's learnt from one of the other guys. Another draft. Could have got there.
Yeah, it is literally just like it went to production, just like one or two drafts too soon. Like, just some smoothing out. Just some simple smoothing out.
But having said that, you could turn around to that comment and go, yeah, but it's much funnier him fending him off with a fan that then gets unplugged. And I go, yeah, no, you're right, that is funnier.
Right, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff we talked about is like, take it or leave it. But some of the stuff is like major structural or character stuff that I'm just like,
yeah, completely.
That needs fixing. Yeah, for sure. I'm okay with some silliness to a point, but like, all you have to do is solve a percentage of this stuff, and you've basically made the movie vastly better. Like, not every tiny little nitpicky like thing we've brought up needs as a solution necessarily, but it's the frequency of them is the biggest issue, I suppose. The fact that there are so many different points where you go, that didn't make sense. How do we get there? Don't we need an extra thing here to explain how we got from that to that? Like it's like somebody who wrote a movie that doesn't really know how movies are structured. You know what I mean? Like it's just very close, but not quite there. But I'd still say though, there's plenty of really good gags and funny character stuff, and like the hypoglycemia thing in that first scene before he explains that, when he reaches out while they're having a drug meeting that's about to turn to murder, and he just reaches through the shelving to grab a packet of crisps and slowly opens it and starts eating them, but quietly, and tries to like soften them up by licking them first. Is like fucking so ridiculous and over the top, but it is very funny. There's so many great like bits and jokes in here that definitely deserve to be seen.
Steve Coogan's great in it. Like so many of the asides that he gives, I can't think of one immediately. I did have one, but yeah, it's just brilliant. Like some of those small moments. Like everyone is doing a really good job. The end sequence, right? Listen, look, 40-Year-Old Virgin. There's Something About Mary. Two films that end with. Especially in the case of There's Something About Mary, I think it's literally over credits. End with sort of musical numbers randomly. But in There's Something About Mary, in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, it's clear that it's kind of a dream sequence, kind of in his head fantasy after the relief of what's just happened. And, it's fine. In There's Something About Mary, it's clear that it's something fun that the cast have put together, and they're clearly in the same scenes and settings, but they're out of characters. I believe it ends with them all laughing and someone saying cut or something like that. Tell me, Dan, the end credits of this, which is everyone dancing at the town hall event to Heroes by David Bowie, which is incredible that they got that song. Is that the cast mucking about? Is that in character? What is that, Dan?
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris. What? I'll tell you what. It's both and neither, because you've got like, so there are moments when it does just seem like everyone like doing a dance or whatever and being fun, but it feels very manufactured fun because the dances feel weirdly coordinated. Like there's a point when they're doing like the dolphin thing and it's like everyone's doing the same dance in the crowd bit. So that feels very deliberate and set up and stuff. And then there are bits when it's like Steve Coogan is like, you know, arm in arm with Lena Headey and like they're kissing and it's like, oh, they're the characters right now. But then you go, well, if they're the characters right now, what? They caught a murderer and then everyone choreographed a dance?
Exactly.
Is this a flash mob? Like, I don't understand. What's happened here?
If there's the characters dancing, they're cutting a bit too much to Jeff and Kirsty dancing. Like, it's not overtly sexual, but it's very flirty at the least. And I'm like, this is a bit weird. This character's a young girl and he's an older guy. Why are they doing this weird sort of flirty thing? Which is, you know, it's just odd. It's such an odd sequence, Dan. I don't understand it. I don't know why it's there. I don't know what it adds. You want to do something fun, give us outtakes. Do you know what I mean? That cast, I bet there was some great outtakes.
Yeah, but because of the way this is done, I reckon they planned this before they knew how it would turn out.
What do you mean, that sequence?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was clearly planned. They thought it'd be a fun thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they arranged for it all.
Weird.
And then afterwards they looked at the footage and went, oh no. But it was too late at that point.
I don't know if they did. I reckon they were just like, oh, this could still work. Let's edit it together. But yeah, it's weird. Like you say, there are moments where you're like, well, that's the cast. And then there are moments where you're like, no, those two are in character. This is odd, especially Simon and Emma. Unless, you know, Steve Coogan and Lena Headey just really got on. But
yeah, you know what? That's possible.
I suppose maybe it's, but no, come on, they're not, well, maybe, I don't know.
They might have been.
Yeah. Maybe.
No, I can't find any evidence that was a thing. No.
I tell you what was a relief, Dan, because so I haven't watched the extra features on the DVD yet. But the DVD does include, as we revealed last week, the video for Atomic Kitten's Eternal Flame, which made us worry that was an integral part of the movie. It's not even the first song in the credits. Why is that on the DVD?
Yeah, the confusion as to why that was a thing. But you know,
yeah,
whatever.
There we go.
You're a studio. You want to put your new Atomic Kitten single in a movie. You couldn't convince anyone at the big studios. You managed to get it in the Parole Officer. Fine, that's a music video sorted, isn't it?
But I don't think there's clips from the Parole Officer in the music video.
Oh, is there not?
No, the video's them stood round, just singing it in various different like tops with a white background.
That's really upsetting because, you know, I'm from the days of like a music video where it's like shots of the band playing in front of like, you know, on a set of some sort that were done in like a day, interspersed with clips from the movie the song is attached to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not them with a white background, it's them with a black background and they're lying on the floor. So I was getting it confused with the video for a whole... Oh, there's some sky. There's some sky and some scaffolding, Dan. Let's add Parole Officer to the search. And see if that adds like a... Because sometimes there's, you know... No. Yeah, none of that. So that's very weird. I think they just, you know, the song was in the movie, and so they kind of maybe went to the record company and went, you want to chuck the video or the DVD? They were like, all right.
Yeah.
Let me look up if there's...
I don't know why that's there. So yeah, I think overall thoughts. I think there is a ton of fun stuff in the movie. It's definitely worth seeing. It's a fun premise. The characters are all really entertaining to watch. There's a lot of like great gags and bits. There's a couple of, you know, like any like a sketch show. You know, not all of them are hits and misses. Like not all of them are hits, some of them are misses, I should say. You know, like I said, the statue stuff doesn't really work for me. The roller coaster stuff didn't work for me. Which I guess we're at the point where we can spoil the movie now. There's a point where they're on the roller coaster and he feels sick and he just keeps vomiting and it just keeps hitting the people behind him and it just keeps going and going and going. And it's not funny the first time and it ain't funny the 18th time. No good. So yeah, there's definitely some bits that fall flat, but I think on the whole, it mostly is funny. In terms of one thing we haven't talked about actually is like how it's aged. In terms of like, we did Dumb and Dumber, and there were some really like problematic bits. Mostly this is fine. I think the closest they come to problematic is the bit where she's getting showered and he's in her room, and the cat nudges her cupboard door, which re-angles the mirror on that door, and he can suddenly see her, and he's like trying to keep the conversation going, but he's obviously distracted by the fact that she's not dressed. And you can see it, but then they try to make it like a sweet thing later, where they have it then her be like reference it, like that she knew that he'd done that, and that's weird too. So yeah, that's pretty weirdly problematic, because it's like this is your lead character, but he's like, kind of pervy. But I guess at the time, what was the time difference between this movie coming out and Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's basically it's completely gratuitous. Like there is literally no need for us to see her naked body in that scene. Is basically the problem. Like it's just there for us to see a naked woman, and that's not cool. It is absolutely. I think you have the right word there. Gratuitous. That is exactly what it is. It's deeply gratuitous. Yeah, completely.
So,
but yeah, otherwise there's no sort of particularly derogatory or awkward language or anything like that. It's actually for 2001. It's a diverse cast where the point is not about the diversity. Like they don't make a thing of that. They don't make cheap jokes surrounding that, which even later movies like the 40-Year-Old Virgin and stuff has a lot of. So yeah, I think you're right. Other than that sort of scene and the general treatment of the Emma character, it's not particularly aged badly.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, but I can't. I think that's it. So
except maybe 10 points I say,
for staying on the right side of the line. Just
because
at some point we are going to get to movies like There's Something About Mary or whatever, and those I don't think that's holding up at all. American Pie probably not holding up at all. I think we're going to have some difficulties when we get to those films. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I would say so. And I thought of kind of I agree with yours. I think on the whole it's entertaining. I've thought of one of the small. I've been trying to rack my brains for like some of the small dialogue moments, like with Steve Coogan especially. One of the ones that really made me laugh was he's trying to bribe the people that are going to beat him up to not beat him up, and he's like, "In my wallet, I've got £40, and then I've got a bank card. The maximum limit is 200. There's 160 remaining. I've taken the 40 out. You've got that." Like just the way he said, "You've got that," just really, really did make me laugh.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. No, there's tons of stuff like that. Like you could literally like pull out like dozens of moments where it's just like small little asides from various characters that are actually really amusing and very funny. So the movie is peppered with a lot of really good comedy. Even if there are a couple of sequences that don't work on the whole, as referenced the fertility statue and the roller coaster sequences particularly. I keep going back to them, but neither of those made me laugh. I guess the final gag for the fertility statue is okay.
The Simon Pegg one.
Yeah, but him in the toilet pretending he's got the shits is not funny, and it goes on for way too long. It's too much.
Like I say, the biggest irritation of that scene for me is it's a completely separate, like as you said, sketch scene. But the big irritation is the only reason that scene should exist is to justify the bonding between the Emma and Simon characters, and they take the characters apart for it. I suppose they giggle and enjoy themselves at the end, but it's thin
also,
at best.
Those two scenes are full of kind of gross out humor that was popular in American movies at the time, but it doesn't feel like this movie wanted to be doing that. Like those two scenes feel out of place in this movie, which is a movie that uses, a lot of like dialogue and asides to create jokes and situations, rather than like, oh, it's funny he's puking on people. Oh, it's funny he's making noises like he's shitting himself.
Yeah, there were some sort of movies of the time in like Guest House Paradiso, I think, was around this time, but
Mm.
that's the whole point of that movie. Whereas, like you say, in this movie, the majority of the humor is coming from sharp dialogue,
exactly.
and ensemble comedy between essentially idiots.
Yeah.
Except not, they do a good job. It is quite astonishing though, as well, that they do a really good job of making the characters seem like buffoons, but also you do buy their specialist knowledge in their specialist areas.
Yes.
Which is quite impressive. So with some heist movies, you're kind of like, come on, you're stretching the believability that this group could pull this off. But it's quite there's some techno babble. This is going to set an alarm. But even that, they're like, well, we've sent a computer virus that's going to hack the system of the security company. Like, it's pretty, like, as heist movies go, it's pretty justified. The plan with the giant piggy bank, and that's how they sneak the robot in, is good. The balloon, the beach ball blowing up to stop the truck going over is very funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, basically, all the ensemble... My big thing is, I think a lot of the dialogue is very sharp. All the ensemble and heist stuff is really entertaining. And Lena Headey is proving what an incredible actress she is. And yeah, those are sort of some big takeaways from me, I think. And I would recommend it.
Yeah, I'd say it's worth it if you've got the time and you're interested and you kind of like Steve Coogan. It's not worth watching. So there you go. That's the movie. Let's do everyone's favorite bit, Chris. Let's do trivia. Say the thing.
Let's chiv it up!
Oh, that's a good one. A lot of effort. I'm going to give you some trivia, with emphasis on some, because I looked on IMDb and there were 13 items of trivia, so instead of filtering them out, we're just going to read every single one. Count them down with me, folks. Number 13.
Hold on. Like I say, very deliberate on my part. We're gonna be a good 45 minutes on trivia, I think, in the upcoming weeks. So
yeah, I'm nervous.
I thought I'd give
we'll come to it. 13.
Something easy.
Despite the title of the film, Simon Garden is portrayed and referred to as a probation officer throughout, which is the correct title for his job both in the UK and US. So the movie shouldn't be called The Parole Officer, it should be called The Probation Worker or Probation Officer. True story. As a gag, Steve Coogan featured 3 review quotes on the back of the UK version of the DVD. The first reads, "Unarguably the greatest film ever made." The quote was attributed to Alan Partridge, a fictional character obviously created by Coogan. Another review says, "A bag of shite," and that's credited to Paul Calf, which is another fictional character of Coogan's. And then there's a third review. It's apparently a standard quote from a hot dog magazine review, which just says, "Coogan is the new Peter Sellers."
It's funny. It's cool.
Yeah. Stephen Delane, who plays Inspector Burton, and Lena Headey, who plays Emma, both go on to star in Game of Thrones. She was obviously Cersei Lannister, and Stephen Delane was, Stannis Baratheon, the dullest character in all of Game of Thrones. Just the worst. So yeah, there you go. Steve Coogan said that while working... Go on, sorry.
No, just said fair. Fine.
Yeah, sure. Oh, I stopped counting them down, didn't I? Wait. 13, 12, 10, 11. So this is the number 11, I guess, if I've counted these correctly. Wait, no, that's 13. So that was 12. This is 10. Number 10, Chris. Steve Coogan said that while working... Go on.
No, just number 10. I just echoed it.
Oh,
sorry.
I thought you said, let me just say. I was like, oh no, don't. I'm dying as it is. Steve Coogan said that while working in South African communities in Northern England, the names of Jenny Agutta and Omar Sharif cut no ice, but that of Puri opened many doors for them. Oh, I see what he's saying. I kind of didn't really understand what that trivia was, but he's saying that while working, in Manchester and filming in areas that were popular primarily with with South Asian communities, saying that the movie starred Omar Sharif or Jenny Aguto was not doing many favors. But as soon as he mentioned Puri, who plays George, people were like, absolutely, come film. So there you go. Number 9, Puri was actually terrified of filming the roller coaster scene, and the look on his face is genuine fright. Poor man.
You can tell that, I think.
I think so too. 8. Simon, we're counting down. We're at 8. We're 8 left. Simon Garden suffers from hypoglycemia. This is a backhanded tribute to Armando Iannucci, who worked for Steve Coogan on his Alan Partridge character. The disorder is like reverse diabetes, in which the sufferer has to ingest carbohydrates on a regular basis to combat the overproduction of insulin. This is why Simon is constantly eating crisps, or in the US, potato chips.
Nice,
Sure.
Good triv.
Sure. 7. The CGI shot of...
Weird triv in a way. The movie explains that. And then again, I suppose the triv is it's a tribute to Armando
Iannucci. Armando Iannucci.
Why did I even attempt? I literally got as far as Armando and just went Armando Iannucci. Like,
yeah. For those who don't know, Armando Iannucci, most famous, I guess, for creating Thick of It. Very good television show from the UK. So, 7. We got 7 left, Chris. CGI shot of the wasp flying up Steve Coogan's nose took 12 hours and 10,000 feet of 35mm film before the wasp actually could be coaxed up into the nostril of a sort of fake green wax head, so they could then, composite the two shots on top of each other. That is an absurd amount of money to spend for that gag.
Wow.
Just is. 6 left. We're counting down. We're on 6. The outside shots of the West Clyde Bank were filmed in an old bank in Castle Street, Liverpool, but the interior shots were actually the Deansgate branch from Manchester. So they shot this in a couple of different places. 5? We on 5? Yeah. Steve Coogan wanted Roger Moore for a cameo. Didn't happen. Moving on. 4. The stuffed koala with drugs in it is a reference to the director, John Dugan's Australian background. It was originally a rabbit. The idea was that the ears of the stuffed toy were seen poking out of Inspector Burton's bag, but they changed it to a koala as a little nod to the director, thus making that make less sense. 3. Emma Williams' debut. 2. Emma Gilmore's debut. Both those actresses, first movie for them. Very good. Did a good job. Liked them both. When you see Simon... Because
Emma Williams, I think, was Kirsty. Who was Emma Gilmore?
Good question. Wait, no, I think Emma Gilmore might have been Kirsty. Oh, Emma Gilmore. I mixed up. Emma Gilmore is the secretary at the beginning of the movie. That's
right.
No. Okay, fine, sure.
Right.
She's one of those actresses that doesn't have a picture on IMDb, which makes me think maybe. Yes, not many credits. So she's clearly moved on to do other things because she's not doing a huge amount of acting. So there you go. Where was I? At number 1, final piece of trivia, Chris. Final piece. This isn't even really trivia. I don't know why this is here. Normally I'd have cut this out, but since there are only 13 pieces, fuck it, we did them all. You can see when Simon is on the roller coaster, when he lifts his hand to vomit, clearly it's something in his hand that is sending out the liquid. So that's clearly how they did that shot. Very good. We did it, Chris.
Does that mean, what are the police cars? What's the car at the beginning?
You didn't think I'd leave you hanging. I've got Cars Exist, everyone.
Yeah!
I do have some Cars Exist trivia. Now, I had to go dig this out myself because there's none on the IMDb page. But of course, I went to my old favourite, the Internet Movie Car Database, and had a look at the movie. So, the red car that the Kirsty character drives around at the beginning that she's stolen, the sports car, that's a Porsche, Chris. It's specifically a 1985 Porsche 944 Turbo. Now, there is some debate on the Internet Movie Car Database if it is the S series or not, and everyone's annoyed because the movie never shoots it from the back, which is where you'd be able to tell that. But one person added, looks like an early 944, so unlikely to be an S. Settled.
How?
Shut it, nerds.
How is the Venn diagram of people that have seen this movie and car movie lovers meant that there are people that are debating that on the Internet Car Movie Database? That's amazing. Unless actually, because it was 2001 and we were only 30, maybe this movie was more known. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm not giving this movie the credit it deserves for how known it was. Although it only made £3 million according to Wikipedia. So,
Yikes.
Yeah, I don't think it was that big. But anyway, fine.
The police cars were the 1999.
Oh no,
Ford
sorry,
Mondeo.
that was it. Sorry, its budget was $6 million. Sorry, apologies.
Oh, there you go. So the 1999 Ford Mondeo was the police car. That is the standard police car that they were using at the time. It appears multiple times in the movie, but it's particularly most prominently featured at the beginning of the movie when it's chasing the Porsche that we just mentioned. It looks like Simon, is that the name of the character? Simon's car is a 1985 Volvo 240, and then the final one, Chris, is, if you're wondering, you know the van, the it's Kirsty, get in. It's get Kirsty in. That's a 1992 Leyland DAF 400, and then in brackets a V400. So yeah, it's a DAF because it was from before the year 1994. If it had been after that, it'd have been an LDV. And they've even actually looked up the license plate and gotten the actual car's own genuine registration details here in the comments. Madness.
Wow. To clarify, by the way, budget $6 million. Apparently, it grossed $3.4 million in the United Kingdom. So that would suggest it literally didn't do very well.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, there you go.
Well, there we go. There we go, Dan. Are you ready? Well, actually, Dan, but I mean, you have the power. We've talked about it a lot. I think it would be a bold move to not pick it. But Dan, just to double check, where are we going next week?
Cool Runnings, obviously. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's time. We've teased it all season. We accidentally chose it and then unchose it for the end of the first episode. It is time, Chris, to tackle Lord of the Rings. Our trilogy for this season will be Lord of the Rings, and we'll be going to... No, actually, no, fuck it. I'm choosing Return of the King. We'll do it backwards. No, I'm kidding.
That will really confuse me, man. I do not know those movies well enough to go backwards.
So we're doing Fellowship of the Ring, which...
And extended editions.
The extended editions, because quite frankly, I don't want the comments. I do think the extended editions are better movies anyway, but I know what the comments will be. Any criticism we have, that makes more sense in the extended cut. That makes less sense. It'd be more, wouldn't it? People defending it because we didn't watch the extended. We'll do the extended, and then you can all shut up.
I don't think they will, Dan.
No, I'm very nervous about doing these. We've talked about it briefly, but I'll just say right now that I'm not a big Tolkien nerd, so I'm very worried that my lack of Tolkien knowledge is going to is gonna be a problem here. I don't really understand the difference between the first, second, and third ages. I know that at one point the tree was a sun. There was a big tree instead of a sun in Middle Earth for a bit. I don't really get it. Fine, I guess. But
mate, you want to know my knowledge and memory of those movies?
Go on.
Genuinely, Elijah Wood's in it.
Yes.
Dominic Monaghan's in it. I'm pretty sure Sean Bean's in it.
Yep.
Sean Bean in it.
Yep.
And in the first one, they stand round in a circle and chat about it. And then I think there's a battle with trees in the second one, and in the third one, people say there's multiple endings, but I can't particularly remember that. I have seen each movie once. I'll explain the context next week. I don't think if they're coming after anyone for a lack of knowledge, I don't think it's you, my friend.
I'm just gonna hide behind you and be like, it's him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I don't know anything, and I didn't overly. I'm hoping and expecting to enjoy these movies more than the first time I watched them, but I will explain more about that next week.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little nervous because I just feel like, the Tolkien lore is there's so much depth to it, and the people who understand this stuff really understand this stuff. But I'm gonna, we'll put the disclaimer here, and we'll put the disclaimer up top next week. We're gonna watch the movies, and we're idiots, and we might miss stuff or not understand stuff, and we're gonna get it wrong. And if that happens, then that's fine. Just we'll put it in the comments, and people will, you can feel superior, and then everyone wins.
Yeah, completely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there we go. This is seeing us out, isn't it? This trilogy.
Yes, and then we are going into a special series, which will be on this feed, because there's nowhere else for us to put it. Called what is it? Rewind? No, Harry Potter and the Rewind reviews.
The Rewind review. Yeah.
Well, we're going to be doing a Rewind review for every Harry Potter movie. And if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, don't you normally do 11 episodes per season of Rewind Reviews? We do. There are exactly 11 Harry Potter movies currently out. So we're doing all the Harry Potter movies plus the Grindelwald shit and the Fantastic Beasts shit. So let's have some fun with that.
Can't wait to very rarely, Dan, do we get to feel and if this is, by the time this goes out, this could be an incredibly inappropriate joke to make. So apologies, because fuck knows what's going to happen between now and when this goes out. But it's very rare that we get to feel like a Hollywood movie studio. But working out how to talk about a film and dodge the Ezra Miller of it all for those final 3 movies is really going to make me feel like Warner Brothers. You know, I'm really going to get a piece of what that room must be like at the moment. Again, fuck knows how that situation has escalated between this and between recording and airing for this. So, if he's done something even more horrific and we shouldn't be making jokes, I apologise. Then again, you could argue that's probably the case already.
Yeah. We'll dance around it as we always do by doing a quick caveat of like, look, we know it's shit, but we want to talk about the movie, so we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to accept a certain amount of problematic people being in movies. Do you know what I mean? Let's just working our way around it. Talking about the Harry Potter stuff in general is going to be tricky with JK, so we're going to have to do some dancing around those topics anyway, because like it's a media podcast. Like we review things like movies, and I don't think it's really no one wants to hear fucking political diatribes.
But moving us to better nice things, I've just remembered another thing I know about Lord of the Rings, Dan.
Oh yeah,
Sylvester McCoy's in it. I look forward to seeing him.
Isn't he in the Hobbit movies?
Oh, is he in the Hobbit movies? Oh, okay. I don't know that about Lord of the Rings then. Never mind.
I think he's like he's the brown wizard, isn't he? Radagast the Brown, something like that. Let me look him up. Sylvester McCoy.
No idea.
So I'm on Sylvester McCoy's Wikipedia page, and it's got early work, Doctor Who, later work, video games, then the Hobbit trilogy, where he played a character called Radagast. So I did get that right. Is he brown? Radagast the Brown! I got it right! I remember the thing!
Mate, well done. I haven't even seen the Hobbit movies, so...
Oh. I guess we'll watch those at some point too. Now that I will feel... Because I'm much more familiar with the Hobbit book than the Lord of the Rings books. Because I enjoyed the Hobbit book. So, slight context. Like I read all the Lord of the Rings books as a kid, but I enjoyed the Hobbit. It's fun and light, and the world feels dense, but we're only getting glimpses of it, and that's fine. And it's when we get to the Lord of the Rings where it's like, now we're going to lay out all of the complicated history and politics of this world, and like that's when it starts to get a bit much. And I'm like, I enjoyed it when it was like a fun kids book about like an adventure.
Well, that is all to come next week, people.
Mm-hmm. So we'll do it. Let's do it. Lord of the Rings, it's happening. God help us all.
Yeah, man. If you want to hear that right away, you can do it on our Patreon page, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. For as little as $1 a month, you can get some shit early. You don't have to do that.
Get some shit early. You really want your shit early.
You want some shit? Yes. You want it early? Yes. Patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. You can also get us on Twitter, Nothing But Static. You can get us on Gmail. What's the Gmail, Matt?
Mail. Dan? It's mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk. We used to have a Gmail. We still technically do, but they're all rerouted. So you just go mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk to get in touch with us.
We're also on Twitter. C Billingham, 2 M's, Dan Doolan. Just Dan Doolan. No dicking about from Dan there.
Nope.
I
was an early adopter, clearly, because I actually got to keep my name. Whereas on Instagram, I have to be that Dan Doolan, which I think I stole from Kevin Smith anyway.
See, I think at one point I had something better than... I had, like, C Billingham. I did have C Billingham something, and then I changed it. It wasn't C Billingham, but it was... I definitely... If I was smarter, I definitely could have got a better Twitter handle. But there we go. YouTube.com/nothingbutstatic UK. maybe?
Yes, for the youtube.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, youtube.com/Nothing UK. Or, of course, you can go to any of the platforms that we are on. So your iTunes, your Spotify's, your pod feeds, or whatever they are. There's usually some sort of review service that allows those services to know you, and you let them know you enjoy the podcast, and then they share the podcast with more people in their search algorithms. So feel free to review on any platform that you happen to listen to our content on. We would appreciate it. Or just keep listening. That's good too. We like that.
Yeah, absolutely, we do.
Or,
there we
go.
go.
Know what?
That's
stop. Just don't listen again ever if you want. That's also fine. If you've listened to this and gone, what a fucking shambles.
Yeah,
no problem.
If you're a big Parole Officer fan and we didn't praise it as much as you wanted us to, sorry. Yeah, no, don't worry. That's okay. If you don't, it's a weird note to end on. But if you don't want to listen, that's fine.
Now you finished the podcast.
I'm Chris Billingham.
I'm Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound. Hit my mic stand a little bit then. There was a little noise, but what does it matter, hey?
I was uncomfortable the whole way through that, so I had to keep adjusting my mic, so I'm sure that listeners had to hear my mic move around a lot, so it's fine.
Have you turned your mic off now?
No, I've not reached up for it yet.
Alright, well, see you guys. Let's hope to God we've got more energy for the beginning of the Lord of the Rings podcast than the end of this one.
Yeah.
Bye.
I've got to go to work in 3 hours.
And I need the toilet.
You didn't warn that would happen. I might just keep you talking.
But I didn't go during, but I mean, this has been, to be fair, this has been one of our shortest episodes ever. We're stretching it out now. All right, bye.
Bye.